In this video, we will be going to study about the hemopoiesis or hematopoiesis. Okay, so in hemopoiesis and hematopoiesis, mainly we will be going to study about erythropoiesis, leukopoiesis, or thrombopoiesis. These are the three different terminologies which are used for production of either RBCs or WBCs or platelets. Okay, so we will start with the hemopoiesis or hematopoiesis. So what hematopoiesis or hemopoiesis is? This means that there is production of all the cellular components of blood. Production of all cellular components, only the cellular components of blood. So blood contains formed elements. So if we will take the blood, so it contains the formed elements, means cells, and it contains the plasma, which is the liquid portion. So here we are discussing only about the formed elements, means we are discussing about the cellular components of the blood. So mainly there are three types of the cells which are present in the blood. One is RBCs, WBCs, and blood platelets. So here we will be studying about the formation of or the production of red blood cells, production of white blood cells, and production of platelets. How this production of the cellular components occurs in our blood, that is called as hemopoiesis or hematopoiesis. Okay, and this whole process occurs within hematopoietic system. It occurs in the hemopoietic system. And what hemopoietic system is? Hemopoietic system includes the organs and tissues. For example, it includes bone marrow, it includes liver, and it includes spleen. So bone marrow, liver, and spleen, they together constitute the hematopoietic system. Okay, so simply if we will say that hematopoiesis, it is the process through which body manufactures, or we can say that through which body produces the blood cells. Now I will explain you how this process occurs by a flow diagram. Okay, how this process of hematopoiesis occurs in our body. So the first cell from which all the cells are derived, that is called as multipotent hemopoietic stem cells. Multipotent hematopoietic stem cells which are present in the bone marrow. Okay, so these multipotent hematopoietic stem cells, these can get differentiated either into CLP or they can get differentiated into CMP. One is CLP, one is CMP. Okay, so CLP means common lymphoid. This is common lymphoid progenitor. That's why it's called a CLP, common lymphoid progenitor, while a CMP is common myeloid progenitor. So common lymphoid progenitor and common myeloid progenitor, and these two things, these multipotent hematopoietic stem cells and CLP and CMP, these all are produced in the bone marrow. So this process, this occurs in bone marrow. Okay, so on one side there is CLP, on one side there is CMP. So I will go with the CLP first. Okay, and then this CLP gets converted into the lympho, or it gets differentiated. There is differentiation of the cells, it gets differentiated into lymphoblast, and this lymphoblast further gets differentiated into three types of the cells. One is B lymphocyte, another is T lymphocyte, and third one is NK cells, natural killer cells. And this process occurs in the blood. Okay, so if you will go for this again, so this multipotent hematopoietic stem cell, this is the important thing from which all the cells will originate in our body. Okay, multipotent hematopoietic stem cells. So these are the multipotent hematopoietic stem cells. Okay, these multipotent hematopoietic stem cells, they will get differentiated either into the CLP or into the CMP. CLP is common lymphoid progenitor, while as CMP is common myeloid progenitor, and this step occurs in the bone marrow. Okay, and the second step, from the CLP, what is formed? Lymphoblast. Then this lymphoblast gets differentiated into B lymphocyte, T lymphocyte, and natural killer cells. And this lymphoblast and B, T, and NK cells, these are formed in the blood. So that is the one pathway. Then second one is CMP. Okay, common myeloid progenitor. So this gets converted into here, either into the erythrocytes, or we call them as RBCs. Okay, or the second cell which will be formed here is myoblast, and third, it gets converted into platelets. So formation of our red blood cells, formation of the platelets, these are the lymphocytes. Now this myoblast can get converted into different types of the cells. I will write it here. This myoblast, first cell is basophil, second is eosinophil, third is neutrophil, fourth type of cell is monocytes, and fifth type of cell is macrophages. These two, monocytes and these all 3 plus 2, these are all called as WBCs, white blood cells. That is the formation of the WBCs. Okay, so this is the formation of the white blood cells. Basophil, eosinophil, and neutrophil, these are called as granulocytes, and these two are called as agranulocytes. Okay, so first there was formation of RBCs, then myoblast, then the platelets. Okay, so now for the formation of this red blood cells, we use a specific term which is called as erythropoiesis. Hemopoiesis means formation of all the cells, RBCs, platelets, WBCs, lymphocytes. Okay, for our production of RBCs, that is called as the erythropoiesis. Okay, means development from the erythropoietic stem cell to mature red blood cell. Stem cells, they will be having the nuclei, but RBC will not be having the nuclei because it gets differentiated. After differentiated, it will lack the nucleus. Okay, second one was formation of the platelets. Formation of platelets, that is called as thrombopoiesis. Thrombopoiesis. Okay, these are different terms. And formation of WBCs, that is called as leukopoiesis. Leukopoiesis. So leukopoiesis is the formation of white blood cells, or we call them as leukocytes. They are formed in the bone marrow, which is located mainly in the bones in adults. Okay, and hematopoietic organs in the fetus. We will also discuss that thing later. Okay, so that is the formation. That is how the formation of blood cells occurs in our body. Okay, so now there is early hematopoiesis and late or adult hematopoiesis. So early hematopoiesis. So what early hematopoiesis means? Before birth, the production of blood cells. So before birth, the production of blood cells, it occurs in embryonic yolk sac. Embryonic yolk sac. Around 14 to 19 days. Okay. So this early hematopoiesis, before birth, the production of blood cells, it begins in the embryonic yolk sac around 14 to 19 days. Okay, and the predominant sites in case of the early hematopoiesis in fetus during the second trimester of pregnancy. It occurs generally in the liver, in the spleen, in the thymus, and lymph nodes. So this early hematopoiesis mainly occurs in liver, it occurs in the spleen, it occurs in the thymus, it occurs in the lymph nodes after 14 to 19 days of development of embryonic yolk sac, and generally this occurs in the second trimester of the pregnancy. There are 3 trimesters of the pregnancy, 3 plus 3, 3 months plus 3 months plus 3 months. Okay. Then after 7th months, or we can say that from 7 months, what happens from the 7 months? Bone marrow takes over, because then there is development of the bone marrow. The process which we discussed above, that was from the bone marrow. Okay, from 7 months bone marrow takes over and it continues to predominate site in the adults. Okay, and in the first 4 years of life, when the baby has born, okay, first 4 few years of life, almost all marrow cavities contain hematopoietic tissue that is called as the red bone marrow. There is not the presence of the yellow bone marrow from first 4 years of life. In first 4 years of life, all the cellular production that occurs in red bone marrow. Okay, so as we get aged, or as we age, the quantity of this hematopoietic tissue, it decreases and is then replaced by yellow bone marrow. So some part becomes yellow bone marrow after 4 years. Some part becomes yellow bone marrow and other part becomes red bone marrow. Okay, so yellow bone marrow, it stores the fat, and in adults, red bone marrow, it is limited to axial, skeletal and long bones mainly. Okay, so this was about the early hematopoiesis. Now after that is second one, which is called as the adult hematopoiesis. Adult hematopoiesis. Okay, so normal adult hematopoiesis, it occurs within red bone marrow, already explained. Red bone marrow. So in adults, the formation of all the cellular components, it occurs in the red bone marrow. Okay, so the increase in the yellow bone marrow, which occurs during aging, means as we age, it restricts sites of hematopoiesis to the axial, skeletal and the proximal ends of long bones, generally the femur, the humerus, and humerus. These are the main sites of the production of blood cells. Okay, so in the presence of defective or insufficient hematopoiesis in the bone marrow, expansion of red bone marrow can occur sometimes. So if you have a defective or if you have a insufficient hematopoiesis occurring in the bone marrow, then the yellow bone marrow can be expanded into red bone marrow. Okay, so hematopoiesis, it can occur also through some other organs. For example, it can occur through liver, it can occur through spleen, which is called as, if the hematopoiesis occurs in liver and spleen, means other than the bone marrow, red bone marrow, it is called as extramedullary hematopoiesis. That's important. Extramedullary hematopoiesis means the formation of the cellular components occurs in the liver and spleen, not in the red bone marrow. That process is called as extramedullary hematopoiesis. Okay, and this can occur in humans. Okay, so all blood cells, they are mainly derived from hematopoietic cell, which I already discussed, which is located in the bone marrow, which is called as multipotent hematopoietic stem cell, which I explained here. You can see multipotent hematopoietic stem cell. Okay, so all blood cells are derived from this multipotent pluripotent hematopoietic stem cell. We can call it as pluripotent also. Okay, so from these cells, all the cell lineages will be formed. It can all the cell lineages can be formed from this. Okay, so in order to form the blood cells, this multipotent stem cell in red bone marrow, it produces further types of cells which are called as myeloid stem cells and lymphoid stem cells. So this is lymphoid stem cell, this was myeloid stem cell, already explained this thing. Okay, so in next generation, these cells are then derived into precursor cells, which are called as blasts, erythroblasts, like this. Okay, and over several cell divisions will occur, they develop into actual formed elements of the blood. You can see that pluripotent stem cell, it converts into lymphoid, then into lymphoblast, then into lymphocyte, T lymphocyte, natural killer cells. So there is differentiation of the cells which occurs here. Okay, and the successful hemopoiesis or hematopoiesis, it is dependent on both the cell proliferation, it depends upon the cell maturation. Okay, and several hormones are also important for this hematopoiesis, and this is also important, which are called as hematopoietic or hemopoietic growth factors. Hemopoietic growth factors, these are very important. These are several hormones which are called as hemopoietic growth factors. They regulate the differentiation and proliferation of certain cells. For example, erythropoietin. You might have heard about the erythropoietin injections. I will write in short form EPO. This is for red blood cells, and this is produced from the kidney. This EPO is produced from the kidney, so it regulates the differentiation and proliferation of red blood cells. Similarly, there is another hormone which is called as thrombopoietin, or I will write this as TPO. So this is for platelets, and this is also produced not from the kidney, it is produced from the liver. Okay, these questions may be asked in the competitive examinations. So erythropoietin is produced from the kidney, thrombopoietin is produced from the liver. It regulates platelets, formation or differentiation of platelets, and it regulates the differentiation of the RBCs. Okay, so this was about the hematopoiesis or hemopoiesis. Then one more thing which we discussed here was the red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow. We mainly discussed about the red bone marrow, and second one was yellow bone marrow. Yellow bone marrow, red and yellow bone marrow. Now we will see the differences between two. What are the differences between two? So this red bone marrow, it's also called as medulla osseum rubra. Medulla osseum rubra, while as this yellow bone marrow, this is called as medulla osseum flava. Medulla osseum flava, that is the first differentiation. Okay, second, this red bone marrow, I will write it with the red one. Okay, this red bone marrow, it's mainly located in shoulder blades. It will be present in the shoulder blades. Red bone marrow. Okay, skull, long bones like femur, humerus, tibia, fibula, and flat bones. While as this yellow bone marrow, it's located in hollow cavities of long bones, only in the hollow cavities of long bones. So that is one more differential. Third difference, this red bone marrow, its level slowly decreases with age. So level decreases with age. As our age increases, the this red bone marrow decreases. Okay, and this is generally opposite. It increases with age. Increases with age. So yellow bone marrow increases with age. Red bone marrow decreases with age. That is the difference between them. Then another difference. This red bone marrow, it is rich in hematopoietic cells. Okay, and this is rich in adipocytes. Adipocytes, because yellow bone marrow stores the fat. These are called as the fat cells or adipocytes. And this one is having the color. What color is having the red bone marrow? It's having the red color, and this one is having the yellow color. That is also a difference. Okay, so red bone marrow, one more difference is there. It is responsible for production of platelets, which we studied, RBCs and WBCs, while as this one yellow bone marrow, it is responsible for storage of fats. Storage of fats. Okay, and it can release, and the release of blood cells, it can also form the blood cells during emergency situations. When your red bone marrow is not producing enough cells, it can take over. Okay, yellow bone marrow can take over. So that was the difference between the red bone